Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Bits and Pieces Cricket Podcast. We've got another interesting discussion for you. On screen, we have the great Lawrence Rowe. We have, he needs no introduction. We have Carlyle Miller, ex-Guyanese player and national cricketer for the USA, captain, manager, etc. And of course, our co-host, Mr. John Aaron. We've got a lot in store for you today, and we'll be back with you shortly.
Every day is a win. You know I try to hold on to it. I still you.
Now we'll be utilizing the talent and experience we have in the room today to address two questions. One, we want to begin a conversation about the qualities of an opening batsman. You know, what are the characteristics of a good opening batsman? And the other thing we want to address is USA cricket. Will the game ever get as popular as it should be in the USA? But we'll begin with John. John is going to talk with our guests about the BLM issues. He's going to start talking with Mr. Rowe, Lawrence. Yagga, you like to be called, right? You prefer to be called Yagga, right? He's going to talk with Yagga a little about, you know, the whole South Africa episode. Over to you, John.
Well, good evening to everyone, those who are joining us for the first time and those who are returning as well. We've got two fantastic guests tonight who need very little introduction in their respective areas. Mr. Carlyle Miller, who has been a former Guyana player, first-class player in Guyana as well as in the United States, and later went on to not only be a distinguished administrator for cricket in the U.S., particularly in the New York area, but also for the U.S., managing the U.S. team, I believe, to Sharjah. But we'll talk a bit more about that in the broadcast. But also joining us this evening is Mr. Lawrence Yagga Rowe, and we'll ask Mr. Rowe how he got the name Yagga. I know, but I'm sure a lot of our guests don't know. But Lawrence Rowe's batting for the West Indies has been described as pure class, as genius, and by people who know cricket a lot more than I do. So I have to accept it as a fact. But when the name Lawrence Yagga Rowe comes up, it is often being associated with the rebel tour to South Africa. And depends on which side of the fence you sit. You might be in support of Mr. Rowe and his decision to go to South Africa along with several other West Indies players, or you may come down on this side and says he should not have gone. But I think, and we'll try to put it in the context of the Black Lives Matter movement that is currently running around the world, including the United States, of course, where it started, and try to put the two things into context. There were 7 tours to South Africa in the mid-'80s, where South Africa, prior to these cricketers going there, these cricketers of color, meaning West Indies cricketers going to South Africa, was considered to be a castaway because the international cricket bodies, and that time was the International Cricket Conference, as opposed to the International Cricket Council, as well as the United Nations and other cricketing and sporting bodies around the world, were against South African teams competing internationally because of the policy of apartheid that the South African government had embraced on the people. And so they not only the international bodies were against participating with South Africa or allowing them to participate in international sports, primarily cricket, but also to South Africa, because of its apartheid system, did not allow blacks or coloreds to play in the South African team. And so several West Indies players were invited to come to South Africa. And it is obvious that some of them went because it was a paycheck for them. But certainly others went along to South Africa because they felt strongly that it would have been the stepping stone to breaking the back of apartheid. And Lawrence Rowe was one of those people. In fact, Sir Frank Worrell had advocated going to South Africa before Lawrence Rowe even considered going to South Africa. Well, Lawrence Rowe went to South Africa, and when he came back, he was described in some cases like a pariah in the Jamaican society because he had gone against what all these other people were saying he shouldn't have done. But I'll let him talk a bit more about that. But I want to put it in the context that moving from the apartheid movement, where blacks were disenfranchised in South Africa, along at the same times when blacks in the United States were disenfranchised, and people like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were trying to get blacks into the mainstream and part of the economic and social structure. That was happening in South Africa. So you can say in South Africa and the US, blacks or people of color, black and brown people, were discriminated against. And now Lawrence Rowe went to South Africa, and now fast forward, we've got this tremendous, phenomenal Black Lives Matter movement. I want to put it in context to Lawrence Rowe and to see if he feels, as I do, that breaking the back of apartheid was a stepping stone to blacks around the world being recognized, and what contribution his going to South Africa played using sport as a vehicle for breaking that. Yagga.
Yeah, I just kind of get a little a quick little opening as to how the cricket ban had come along with South Africa. We have to remember, for those who are younger than younger, those at my age would have known that the ban on South Africa all started because South Africa used to play Test cricket. They used to play against New Zealand, England, and Australia. The only team they didn't play against was the West Indies and Pakistan and India. They didn't play against those teams while they were there, and they were a great team then because at the time when they were kicked out, they basically was regarded as world champions. And the reason for them getting kicked out at the time was that a man called Basil D'Oliveira, which some of you might have known or heard about, was a colored South African. Who, and when I say colored South African, D'Oliveira at the time was probably somebody like President Obama in terms of what they look like. And he went and played county cricket in England. And then he actually did play for England as a colored South African. He went to Australia with a English team, and he did very well down under with the British team. And when he came back the next tour, they were going to South Africa. England was going to visit South Africa. They deliberately leave D'Oliveira out of the England team. But fate had it that a member of the team got injured, and the obvious choice was D'Oliveira. And they brought D'Oliveira into the team. And when D'Oliveira was brought in, the South African government said, absolutely not. No way they will accept an English team coming to South Africa with D'Oliveira. And that is how South Africa was kicked out of international cricket in the 70s. I think it was 1970 that took place. And then that, I think at that time, Sir Gareth was, they had 15 with a England versus the rest of the world team with Sir Garfield Sobel that captain that team in England against the Englishmen. And he played with some well-known South Africans, famous South Africans, people like the likes of Barry Richards and Graham Pollock, Eddie Ball, and these guys played in that series with Sir Gary. And I suppose, playing that series with those guys, Sir Gary and them got along fairly well, and then he was invited to Rhodesia. And then he went and got into trouble for going to Rhodesia after he played with those guys in South Africa. And then, as I said early on, I had always had a passion for the whole situation of trying to find out what it was like in South Africa for myself. This is long before the tour even came about. And when I got the opportunity to go, I first declined. I must say, you guys, I first declined to make the trip. But it was put to me that there is no way the trip would have got off the ground if I was, because it didn't have enough star players on it. And apart from that, they wanted me was to be the captain of the team. Some of the guys in the team was less fortunate than I was at the time in terms of what they were doing financially and everything. And, if I didn't go on the tour probably would not have gone on. So we had signed up most of the guys, and I didn't sign. Contrary to what a lot of people think, that I had signed a contract. I didn't sign a contract to go to South Africa. Then I actually reached South Africa when I signed my contract, because I had asked for certain things on the tour, like, for instance, if black people could have come to the grounds where we were playing. It was a astounding yes that they would allow to be there, and the only place they would not allow to come at the time when I went there was the members pavilion, which that happened everywhere around the world. So we had put a few little conditions in there that we would have liked to have seen happen. Now, in making my decision, I look at a few things. I didn't believe by going if it would have made it any worse for black people in South Africa. But by us going there and especially doing well and beating them there, it could have motivated and changed a few people. More so, blacks would be probably happy that we were there and we were doing that well. And then it would have changed some white people as well. So those were my reasoning when I went there. There's no way I've gone to South Africa if by going there I had felt that we would have made it worse for black people. There's no way I would have gone. Absolutely not. No money could have got me there for that. But I believe by going there, we could have helped to change things a little bit. Just to change a little bit again, the great Arthur Ashe, the great American tennis player, went there before us. He was vilified and was told that he should not have gone to South Africa, both by the National Congress in South Africa and some organization in the States. And one of the things that they told him is that the South African regime was using him. And Arthur's answer to them was that, yes, I know they are using me, but I am also using them.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can get you. Today, when Mandela was released, he named Arthur Ashe as a person who had helped to break the back of apartheid. Nelson Mandela.
Yep.
So I would tend to think that in a small way, our tour had helped as well. When we went there, we played against one black person played for South Africa when we went there. A lot of people didn't know this. We took on engagement in Soweto. When we were beating them so badly, they decided that they could find a Sylvester Clark in Soweto. So they put on a fast bowling competition in Soweto and had us there. And the team went there to Soweto and put on that fast bowl. Now, if people don't believe me, they can go on YouTube now. That is on YouTube now. We can see where that fast bowling competition was. They were searching for a black fast bowler at that time. And I was the judge of that fast bowling competition in Soweto. So we didn't just go there and didn't go in the black neighborhoods and do things for that benefit black cricket at the time. And to fast forward a little bit, as a whole guy now, 30 odd years later, I've been getting so much emails from young white South Africa who told me that they came to see us when they were 12, 14, and 15 years old back in South Africa, and how much it had changed their lives. I mean, when I hear things like those and get these mails, it really, really is satisfying to me. And regardless of what anybody had said during the whole time, I stick to my guns. I feel what I did was the right thing then, and I feel that it's the right thing today. And when we look at where South Africa is today, if we look at it today, a black man from South Africa is regarded today as the greatest fast bowler in the world. Mr. Rabado. Is regarded as the greatest. And there's several more. There's a young black man captaining the one-day team for South Africa now.
But
And
Lawrence,
when you
how,
see a South Africa team tour, it have at least 6 or 7 black men on it.
Lawrence, how do you juxtaposition that situation with where you came out of the Caribbean, where granted we were all under the colonial system, right? And I wouldn't go into the socio-political aspects of that and whether we are brainwashed or not, but we came out of that system. You came out of that system, went to South Africa to essentially break the back of apartheid, and you successfully did that. Why is it in the Caribbean where you've come out of, there are still some people to this day that hold you with disdain that says you should not have gone to South Africa? How do you juxtaposition that issue? How do you explain that?
That's a very difficult one. I mean, it was branded by some of my colleagues when I went there, although we played together. And I'm one who had participated in, I believe, the 2 of the biggest cricket revolution that has taken place in the 20th century. The first Packer revolution. And when we went to sign and went to Kerry Packer, we got some of the same message from everybody jumping us. They call us all the names that they could have called us when we went to play for Kerry Packer. I mean, there was a little difference here, but when we went into Packer, it was the whole situation of what cricketers were making for what they were giving. We weren't making any money at all, and the sport was growing and we weren't making any money. And this was the biggest payday for us at the time. We went and we were banned for life as well too. Remember, a lot of people forget that. The West Indies Cricket Board banned us for life. Packer had to sue, and when he sued the International Cricket Conference, that is where everything got free up. And then back in the Caribbean, they had brought us back. And if you remember, at that time, we had 2 teams. Kalcharan had led a team to India at that time. Cali captained that team to India. And then we were brought back and played. And then later on down, there was a strike because a few of the younger players who had signed for Packer. The board had dropped them. So this is where the team was dismantled in the middle of that Australia series. I think after 3 test matches or thereabout, it was dismantled, and then the second West Indies team took part there. So I couldn't understand how some of my colleagues, yes, you have quite a few of them who decide their mind that they did not want to go. And, that's fine, no problems. But there's the way in which they treated the guys who went. They played with us. They knew all of us. We were all friends. But all of a sudden, they were behaving as if we were racist to go. They called us some names that was, out of this world, some of them treat. Unconscionable how some of them treat us. Yeah. And today, some of them still do that today. I can call out a few names and come in a few people who I I have a lot of respect for Viv Richards, who did not go. I have a lot of respect for Viv in the way in which he handled the situation. You know, Andy Roberts didn't go. I mean, he handled it fairly well. You know, and you have quite a few other guys, but you have some prominent ones, which I don't want to put on the spot here tonight. Today, they still have us, and they believe that they are right and we are wrong today. You know,
Almost 30 years later, right?
You guys have seen you must have seen this movie, the Fire in Babylon. You guys must have seen that, and I'm sure your audience have seen that. And a few of them here describing, and they were describing how when we went to England and played in England, how we motivated black people in England, because black people who left the Caribbean, migrated from the Caribbean in the 60s and go to England. They faced some racism up there at the time. And when West Indies team toured England, it was their victory. We played well, we won, it was a victory for them, and they were all over the place rejoicing. And these guys were saying how much the West Indies tour to England have done for black people in England. I want to know what is the difference of we tour in South Africa and doing the same thing, winning there. Why you couldn't have motivated black people in South Africa?
Well, yeah, but Lawrence, you certainly did, because look at the composition of the South African team today. So you in fact made a pathway for black South Africans to play for the national team in South Africa. Carlyle, let me turn to you. You obviously lived through, like I did, through that era when Yagga went to South Africa. What was the thought process? What was the discussion like between yourself and your peers at the time? Did you guys support these guys going to South Africa or not?
I think there was a split. There was a split, various views on both sides of the fence. But in general, I think they came to the realization that the guys that went were justified in going for more than one reason. It was not only a monetary thing, but it also helped to shake up that system that actually needed somebody to take a stand. And I think
you're talking about apartheid. The apartheid system,
yes. And I think some of the cricketers that did not go, that's my personal opinion, they saw an opportunity for themselves to be elevated into the various positions, not being aware of the facts that when the guys came back, if you weren't talented enough, you won't be able to be part of that team.
But it was a couple of years after the guys came back, before they were readmitted, so to speak, into the West Indies team. In fact, England and Australia, whose players incidentally also went to South Africa, were readmitted because they sued their national cricket board, and they were readmitted into the thing. The West Indies were a little longer. And just to wrap up this apartheid, this rebel tour thing, to fast forward, Lawrence Rowe was a stand in Jamaica at Sabina Park, was supposed to be named after him. And people were outraged, I think, based on one journalist who wrote and said that he was a traitor for going to South Africa. Well, who did he betray? And so there was this continuous thing. And to this day, I don't believe a stand in Sabina Park has the name Lawrence Rowe on it. And if anybody's deserving of that accolade, it would be this man, Lawrence Rowe. And so to this day, we still, some people in the Caribbean, and I don't want to single out Jamaica, but in the Caribbean in general, still hold on to these colonial views that you're either with us or you're against us. And the bigger picture here is that a lot of good was done. Look, I was in South Africa in November of 2019. And I was treated in a way that I don't think I could have been treated if I'd gone to South Africa in 1982, being a black man. And ironically, in the same hotel where I was staying, Gale was staying, Chris Gale, and he's playing for a team called Josie Stars, Johannesburg Stars, in one of these T20 fast competitions. And they're all black South Africans playing. And I must say that to give credit, even if it's the minuscule way, to Lawrence Rowe, because had he not gone to South Africa and helped to break that apartheid thing, I could not have gone to South Africa, regardless how much US dollars I went with, and enjoy a vacation and be free to walk there and stuff like that and be respected. So I got to give a lot of kudos to this man, and to say that those people who still don't see what him and the other West Indies players who went to South Africa has done for apartheid and making it possible for guys like Nelson Mandela to come back and govern South Africa, certainly needs to reevaluate their positions. But Lawrence Rowe, thanks for going to South Africa. Carlyle, go ahead.
No. I'm saying Lawrence took a stand, and it's a brave stand to take, and all those who went with him. And I certainly would support him, and supported him for the decision that he made. You know, among our people, especially Caribbean people, and I'll say this, and challenge anyone to think otherwise. We have a serious difficulty with our own people, and when we come down on somebody, we don't really release that at all. We will continue to go along the road until you die. And when you do look into the lives of those people who are condemning others, there's so many flaws that if it's exposed, you know, what would happen to them? Most of the time when you check that out, the people who are the harshest critics have a whole lot of baggage that if it's exposed, that would be the end of their lives.
That is so true. But I want to thank Yagga for going to South Africa and being part of that movement that helped to change the things. Like how this young girl from George Floyd's daughter who says her dad would change the world. We all can make a change in the world in some small contributory way or another. And Nancy.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Yagga, for giving us the background. We'll take a brief break and we'll be back to talk. Okay, before we move on, Yagga, there's a young viewer who has a little question there for you. So if you could quickly.
You seen the question?
I think your mic is muted.
Lawrence, can you see the question on the screen? Let me read the question for you. This young person, Sherwin Thomas, is asking, were you afraid of any of the repercussions, like never being able to play cricket again after going to South Africa?
That's a question that somebody's asking?
Yes.
Yes, Yagga.
Is somebody asking you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
We're hearing you.
Well, when we went, when you were going to be banned. Yes, when we went, when you were going to be banned for life. For life. But the one regret I have is that we didn't take it up. The guys didn't take it up because there's no way that we should have been banned. And one of the funny thing about it is that the Englishmen went, their board banned them for 3 years, and they fought it, and I think they got 2 years or something like that. The Australian went, they banned them for 3 years. They sued, and the ban was put off. The West Indies Cricket Board banned us for life. So even then, the black man get the harshest. The black people give us the harshest penalty. They ban us for life. And they ban us straight down the line. They ban us from playing all form of cricket in the Caribbean. From club level cricket, first class cricket, and test match cricket. We're banned from everything. Mm-hmm. So really and truly, the only regret I have is that I weren't able to at least play at club level cricket, that I could have given back something to the youths of the Caribbean.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that, Yagga. All right. We want to address that little question on the screen. What qualities must a good opening batsman possess? We have the great Lawrence Rowe with us this evening. So we're going to talk a little bit about technique and so on. Now, before I go to Yagga, Carlyle, in your position as a player, as a captain, as a manager of the USA national team, in terms of the opening batsman position, when you're on the field or in the stand, what do you look for to know? Okay, I think this particular player has potential to be a good opening batsman.
There are so many factors, I think, in determining not only an opening batsman, but any top class batsman. But if it pertains to opening batting, I think concentration is an integral part of success there. How you play the ball, whether early or late. I think if you play the ball late, that's another factor that will bode you well as an opening batsman. And the rest of it is eyesight and how you time ball and stuff like that. But basically, I think the most important thing there is concentration.
Concentration.
To be able to bat long and to let the rest of the players bat around you as an opening batsman.
What would you add to that, John? Based on your own experience.
No, I think it's right. I think patience is the important thing. And Yagga, who's opened a number of occasions for the West Indies, can add to this. He had a way of going out there and whistling. Even after he played a shot, he'd be whistling. I call him the whistling journeyman. But that was part, I believe, of his modus operandi, his way of remaining calm, remaining in control. And I think any opening batsman has to be able to remain in control, because cricket, as you well know, is a battle between bowler and batsman. Every ball is different. Every ball could be different. Every ball could be played differently. The decision you make from the time the ball is released to the time it touches your bat, you have to make that decision based on the game of situation awareness, your own position in the team, what the target is. So a lot of thought process goes in to playing just one shot. And I think part of that is being able to control yourself in the process of being able to focus, as Carlyle said. But you've got to think as an opening batsman, particularly in Test cricket. You've got to go in and say, I'm going to bat long. It's not T20. It's a different format. T20 dot balls don't help you if you're batting. You want every ball to score. But sometimes in Test cricket, dot balls are important for you to play in to the game. Yagga, your thoughts?
Okay, Yagga.
listen.
So Yagga, before you touch
Some
on
people
that,
get
yeah, before you touch on that, give us an idea how you got started and at what point did you start opening the batting?
got started for the West Indies or overall
No,
got
generally
started
in
overall?
cricket, yeah, from from your days back
Well,
home.
generally, it was my brother, the influence of my bigger brother, who started playing, and then I followed as a youngster, followed it. And then the rest is history from that. We'll move forward from that. But in terms of the opening the batting, which goes for a lot of top batsmen, is that first you have to have good technical skills as an opener. You must be able to pick line and length quickly. When to play back, when to play forward, very quickly. You have to make those kind of decisions. You have to have a clear mind of the top three. If you're batting the top three, you have to have a clear mind in making your decisions very early in what you're gonna do. But as I said early on, the main thing for me is to be able to judge length, line, have a clear mind. You have to leave a lot. You can after a while you learn how to assess pitches as you go on and play on them around the world, because most pitches around the world are different. The opener, the early morning, the condition is terrible. The first two hours in the test match morning is always difficult to play, and the opener has to be able to leave a lot and consolidate himself and also push it along. The great Conrad Hunt was one who, although he was a great opening batsman, he wasn't just there staying there. He was always a prolific scorer. He was always scoring while being there. He had all the qualities of a great opener.
Okay. So, give me your knowledge and experience. In terms of a youngster, up and coming youngster at the opening, how would you essentially advise him as to how to better his game as an opener? What are the what are the kind of exercises you would suggest to him? What are the things that you would have him pay attention to as a young and up and coming opener?
The first thing I would let him know is that he has to work extremely hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to be good days. It's going to be bad days. And you have to take the bitter with the sweet. And you have to work hard. And then some of the things I say early on, you have to be able to pick the length and line of the ball very quickly. If you can do that, that is really one of the big part of batsmanship. When you can pick the length and the line early, you can leave early, you can get on the back foot early enough if the ball is short enough. And you have to remember now, the bowler always try to do the opposite of what you're trying to do. The bowler wants to try to deceive you, to try to get you in that spot wherein you should be playing. He wants you to play back to ball like you should be forward. That is the line that the bowler wants to pick, and that is where the batsman is challenged, where he wants to be early enough on both sides of the ball. You have to be there early enough to play forward and when to play back and when to leave. So that would be my advice to any youngster who's coming up and trying to get in there. You have to work extremely hard. First of all, you have to work hard to get there. And when you get there, these are some of the qualities you have to have. And remember now that, it's not always, it's not going to be always success. When the failures come, majority of the time, the quality of the player is told from coming back from all the successes and when failures come along. Yes, when failures come along and you have to come back, that is the hardest part of the sport, to really come back from that. So when you have, like for instance, myself, I had early success in Test match cricket.
Right.
And then there's nowhere else to go but down. And then when you get to that side of the ball, no, you have to pick yourself back. You have to pick yourself back up.
Right, right.
And that is extremely difficult to pick yourself
I,
back.
I can imagine.
When you can do that. Yes, when you can do that, the sky's the limit when you can do that.
Well.
And we have to remember, we're all gonna get there, regardless how great we are. There's a period where the failure is gonna, and it's how you come back from those failures.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. John, you want to add anything before I go over to Carl?
No, I want to. And Yagga's been known for playing a beautiful cover drive off the back foot. Well, a few people can play it forward or going backwards, and so that is one of the things that made him such a genius batsman. And I think, and Carlyle would agree with me, that we saw too little of Lawrence Rowe. We know that when he went to play for Derbyshire, he developed some allergies, and that affected his ability to play. He did come back, but with all due respect to him, he was never the Yagga that we foresaw. And he did have very early success in Test cricket. But I wanted to pivot a bit to Carlyle. And Carlyle, you have played first-class cricket in the Caribbean, and you've played cricket in the US. The conditions of the two, now we know they're not perfect. We know the US at the time was not even an ODI nation, didn't have too many turf wickets and stuff. But as somebody who grew up playing cricket in Guyana and then shifted to live in the United States, how do you compare the two in terms of the approach to the game? And I'm talking about the game on the field as opposed to administratively. What sort of adjustments did you have to make as a player?
Really, there's no comparison playing in the West Indies and playing here in the early days. The conditions under which you played in the Caribbean was very, very good in some instances, but a lot of the wickets were underprepared. If you were in a first-class team and they had their grounds, generally you'll get a pretty good wicket to play on. And the competition, the first-class games were held Saturday, Sunday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, 3-day matches. And that was an area which you developed your skill sets to learn to bat long, especially in the thing of an opening batsman. But when you came here, you were playing on underprepared wickets with a bunch of grass in a park, a bunch of baseball cleats running and digging up the wicket, and you just go take a mat on a broom and throw down a mat in on it. And on the surface, you got pebbles. And if the ball hits right and you're in front playing for, I've seen guys get knocked in their face. The ball just kicks up in front of them. So the conditions of playing here were really awful. I came here in 1969. It was awful.
How did you make the adjustment?
Well, over time, you use the little knowledge you gained while playing at a better level, and you learn to not play out very much in front. You learn to be a back foot player to a certain extent, and you play the ball back from off the back foot. But one of the things that I thought helped the cricket in general is that in 1972, I think it was, a group of guys decided that they'll go and form a new league. And we went out to Long Island and formed a board instead of the league, a board. And we had about 6 or 8 clubs that left the leagues and came with us. And we tried to emulate what was done in the Caribbean. You show up to play cricket. We provide the stumps, the balls, the mats, the wickets. We provide everything. And we paid someone to roll the wickets when the weekends come. We paid them a fee. And we charged a sum of money to play. And therein started one of the better leagues that has ever been around here, the Long Island Cricket League. It was done on a formula based on the West Indies, and it started to improve the game in general. And for the time we were in existence, we never lost. We were the dominant team in the league across the whole metropolitan area. We never lost the league game to anyone.
And that team.
What was the name of that team?
The Long Island Cricket League.
Okay.
No, the team that never lost.
The league never lost.
Or the league, you play interleague then, you play interleague cricket.
No, yeah, we played interleague.
Okay.
Long Island League had their own competition, and my club, the Atlantis Club, won several years. The Eastern American, a team called come on, one of the I forgot the name, but they won. The Barbadian team, captained by Clyde Griffith, won. Their name was Modern, and the Indian team that won was Everest. They also won. Those are about the three teams I think won in the Long Island Cricket League. But therein started the change that we started to see, and other leagues dealt with the same thing. Start preparing the wickets on Sunday morning early, or Saturday morning early, in order so that you can have a decent game. And with improved umpiring, I thought things started to progress over the years. But in difference to what's going on now, it's chalk to cheese. In terms of talent-wise, it's chalk to cheese. Talent-wise.
Which is the cheese and which is the chalk?
Yeah, I was just about that.
I don't have to worry. The type of competition they have now, it's not all that. It's not all that. It's not all that. We had a very good set of players, because what we had at that time is an influx of cricketers from the West Indies all over. That guys that were close to representing their countries and their islands that came here to further their education and became involved in the game. So the standard of the game, you were not playing against novices, you're playing against guys at a very high level.
Yeah.
So that translated into the cricket becoming a very potent set of individuals, especially in the New York metropolitan area. We were in the New York area, across the Americas. We were the champion league.
Very good, very good.
We were the champion league. They couldn't beat us. No?
Those were the days.
So you're saying that the talent pool has whittled Miller, Carlyle?
I think so. I seriously think so. When I look at some of the games, and because what we see here is like a replica of what's going on in West Indies cricket.
Okay, would you agree with that, John? You've been involved.
Look, I think, if you're given lemons, you make lemonade. So whatever you're given, you got to work with that.
Yeah.
What I wanted to pivot to was to Yagga, moving to Miami in around 1981-82, right? Was that the time you moved to Florida? I think are you unmuted there?
Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Yagga.
Yes, you're hearing you. You moved to Miami around early 80s, 81, 82?
Yeah. 83. 83
Right.
today,
Okay. 83. Okay. So did you play any cricket, get involved in cricket? And how did you find you yourself or anybody's making those adjustments?
I have to laugh first, because what really happened when I got here, the ridiculous South Africa thing even was here too. You have guys up here, guys in Miami who were saying that they didn't want to play with us. They didn't want to play with anybody who went to South Africa. So I said, what
Wow.
audacity. These guys should be, they should be honored to want to play with me. Instead they are saying they didn't want to play. So I never really played. I never played any cricket here. I think I played probably about 3 matches here. Late up, Gordon Bridge and Desmond Yates came here with a young Bobby, the under 19 team, back in probably that would be in the 90s. There, I played that game. I played probably about 3 or 4 games here, and it was very much longer after I'd come back from South Africa. That because the people here had taken it too far. You know, they're taking the South Africa thing too far. Wherein they wanted to be like the West Indies Cricket Board, you know, and I just never get involved with it. It was on. I watched quite a bit, and had quite a few players who came in and set up a reasonable good league here, and it was going for a while. But even in the New York area, I think what happened is that our kids didn't play. This is the whole thing about it, you know. A lot of us, our children didn't. We didn't take our boys to the park and and have them getting involved in the sport itself. So when we got older, it was all over. Right, Carlyle? When we got older, it was all over. There was no replacements, really.
Yeah, so somebody brought it up in an earlier conversation I had this week. Yeah, about the youths not, you know, about we needing to get the youths involved there.
Yeah, there was no replacement. You know, our sons didn't play. Only a few guys, their sons continue to play in the cricket here. My son is in New York, lives in New York, and he told me that he didn't try to play up here, although he played schoolboy cricket back home in Jamaica. He didn't play here at all when he came here.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is the downfall, I think, of cricket. If you notice, most of the Indians play here. The Indians and their kids play a lot here. They really control the cricket fully here. No fault of theirs. Our kids just didn't. We just didn't take our kids to the park and have them playing the sport. So really and truly, we have to take some of the blame for that, you know.
Yep.
How can we change that? Or is there a way to change that, John and Carlyle? In terms of getting the younger people involved, the younger West Indians, I should say.
See, one of the problems, in my view, is that everything now is a monetary situation.
Correct.
Let me say, 80% of the teams are youths playing here. They will play with you today. And somebody comes and says, "Man, Lawrence, you're a great guy, man. We got a good team here. Come and play for us. We will pay you X amount of dollars." And I guarantee you that's what will happen. They change and they go to another team to try to win a trophy that that is less than the money that you're getting paid for, right? But you switch allegiance and you go to another team. Then next year, John comes and says, "Man, you ain't do too bad over there. I got a good set of guys. I got this guy came up from Trinidad and he's a good spinner. I need you to complement the team." He's going to leave that team and he goes to John's team. And the thing continues all over the place. And that's one of the basic things. So you can't build on something like that.
Yeah.
And the people who are involved with that are guys who are trying to make money. You got a bar, and they can pay out a couple of dollars, and they have a bragging right. "Oh, I won the trophy." Next year, the guys, 2 or 3 of the guys leave him and go to somebody else, and that's the whole cycle year in year.
But I think, Carlyle, the fundamental question that's being posed is how do we get the kids to play? You're talking the level where the kids are men, 18, 19, 20, who would have gone on to play and move from club to club depending on who's paying to the highest bidder. But I think the fundamental question is at the grassroots level. And one of the things I would say, Nancy, that I believe is the cornerstone for changing that and for replacing the absence of the young Lawrence Rose playing cricket is the PSAL.
Right.
Those athletic league. They've got you. I mean, those kids are not earning money yet outside playing cricket.
Exactly.
But I think what the PSAL is doing is inculcating in those kids the passion for the sport. Now, what they do when they leave high school and they start playing in the clubs and they jump from club to club, that's a whole different story. But I think at the grassroots level, what the PSAL is doing what us as parents who own young boys or young girls who have young boys or young girls, not taking them into the sport. The PSAL is taking that. And I would just hope, and we hope, and Nancy and I hope to have the PSAL Commissioner Bassett Thompson on this show sometime down in the next couple of weeks. And he can probably explain how that model can be replicated throughout the United States. And if that model is replicated throughout the United States, imagine the number of kids in New York, the density, the per capita, the density of people in New York. You can go within 5-10 miles of any location and run into a cricket ground from wherever you are. That's how populated they are. And we're talking here primarily of kids from the Caribbean in New York. We're talking about kids from Southeast Asia, yes, but there are a lot more kids from the Caribbean in a highly densely concentrated area in New York, so that we can still, cricket in the Caribbean is part of our DNA. How do you pass on that DNA? And certainly the Public Schools Athletic League is a perfect vehicle, a medium to get more Caribbean kids involved. And that's something we need to explore.
I have been, I think, at the forefront of this from the very beginning. A gentleman that promoted cricket here, some of the best international games. His name is Bert Smith from Barbados. He had contacted me very early, and we started to coach at the police precinct on Tilden Avenue by Flatbush. They had a place there, and the Police Athletic League, we got involved with them, and myself and about 2 other guys were the core guys, and we started that, I think, somewhere in the 80s, the early 80s. And from that, we transitioned into the schools.
Okay.
I did that, even jeopardizing my job because of my love for this game. But I was outside. I was a marketing guy outside, so I'll use that time I can get to go to the schools or parks anytime, like 3 o'clock in the afternoons, and do some coaching with guys who are interested in these various schools. When I stopped doing that, we had, I think it was 12 high schools all involved in a competition where the Police Athletic League had some funding, and we started that program, a high school program of cricket. That's where I met Bassett Thompson in the latter half of that. And when I was completely finished with the school program, I think we had about 16 high schools playing cricket when I got out of it, and there was all sorts of politics involved and stuff. So I left that alone. But there was a really concerted effort, and it was growing. One of the problems we suffered, as usual, is finances. To facilitate it, we even went as far as to try to get the schools to try to get a government program for youths to put some money into that. Roy Sweeney, the late Roy Sweeney, had helped tremendously in that. We tried to get grounds, and as a matter of fact, we had a PSAL competition that used to be run on Saturdays or during the week, and a lot of those players ended up coming into the leagues to play for.
There's hope. There's hope.
So there was some good things that happened at that time. Somewhere along the line, I think it fell off, and
I think we can hope and they can come back on.
it can. But we have to have committed people, like in everything else. If there's no commitment, there's no future into anything that one does. You have to be committed.
Right, John. From little that you know, do we have a schoolboy cricket now as we had back in the 70s, 80s in Guyana?
No, not really. And I think that is one of the things that has contributed to decline in West Indies cricket.
Yeah. What about in Jamaica,
Thank you.
Lawrence? What is it the same in Jamaica?
I still believe that they have the schoolboy program.
Schoolboys cricket?
Under 15. Jamaica had under 15
Okay.
thing going, they had under 19 thing going, and we have the West Indies under 19 thing going. So clearly, all the islands still compete there, and this is one area in which we have done very well over the years in under 19 cricket competition. We have done well throughout the world in the last couple of years with it. We've always competed well. So for me, I would tend to think that the West Indies Cricket Board should be looking at the areas wherein when the guys leave under 19 cricket, why the rest of the world, their under 19 players move on and have become successful at Test cricket, and our players lag back so far. Right in that period, we are winning there. We're winning in the under 19. Our team always come in first, second. We had won the competition a few times. We are doing second and third. We are right up there all the time in the under 19 cricket throughout the world. But when our players move on, the other country does much better than us. And
That's one of the questions.
I think that is where West Indies should tackle. That is the area where they should be focused, I think. Right in that area there. What do we do to transform these young players of the under 19 age into top class test players?
Bangladesh doing it. India's doing it. Yep.
Lawrence, I'd like to ask you this question. Why it is that all of the other teams in the world, their young players move on and graduate into higher standards and have done well? What, in your opinion, is the reason why the Caribbean players can't move forward when they do well at under 19? What's the problem there?
That is the big problem, and that is the elephant in the room. Wherein I think that is where we're supposed to be focusing all our resources. A lot of the resources should be focused right there. What do we do to make these young players?
Do you think the 2020 is part of the problem?
I am not so sure. I'm not so sure with that. If you have the proper coaches, because I personally feel that I know certain things have evolved in the game. Even some of the techniques have evolved, which we can't go into tonight. But some of the techniques have evolved. But I believe you first need to make people learn to bat properly first. You need to get young men to bat properly. Good technical skills first. You can branch out from a good, solid base. All the time, branch out from that. But if you don't have a system, you run into trouble, you have nowhere going.
Yep.
So I believe we need to have a solid base first, and then we can move from there. So that is the area in which I believe the West Indies Cricket Board should be focusing most of their resources in trying to get these young players the proper coaching. Although I'm not a man who's a big time person, especially when you reach the test level, that coaches does so much for them, really. Because when people reach to that level of cricket, it is a different situation. You don't really coach these guys per se. No. Because they can play. They can. If you weren't playing well and can't play, you wouldn't be able to play this one. So really, actually, it's a lot of different things when you reach to that area. That the responsibility of the coach. The responsibility of the coach is to set you up, good game planning, and all these sort of stuff that the coach is going to instill in you. Good habits, so that you can move forward. A person who can pick up certain faults quicker that players are running into these kind of problems, who can identify it quickly and get it to the player. That this is what I've noticed with you with the last couple of XYZ. You're getting
Have
into
you
these bad
have you
habits.
ever, Lawrence? Have you ever considered coaching?
Well, there was no need to do so. Really, it's something that I would probably love to do. Especially, I believe in with batsmen. I believe in more like a technical advisor role. That is where I see it, where I would become like a technical advisor than more than a odd coach. How we see it. I believe youngsters need to be coached. Well, 19, under 19, you need youngsters coaches for them. But I believe when you get past 19 and you're stepping out into the big time, you need more technical advisor. A man like me who has been there and done it, players who have been there and done it, who can do these things and can pinpoint falls quickly, can do a world of good for some of these players. So
Lawrence,
that is something that is a role I'd like to play.
right. So if the West Indies if the West Indies was to call you back to be a mentor, would you consider?
By all means, I would do. By all means, no problem at all. I'll be there in a hurry. But we are getting a little bit older now. My group is getting a little bit older now. I believe we should be utilizing, say, for instance, a Brian Lara and people in that group a little bit more now. We need to utilize these guys a bit more now. They have the age now where we need to utilize
as mentors.
Like Brian, I think we need. Yeah? Yes, as mentors. We need to do. Yes, we need to do that.
The question is, John, how is it that in the Caribbean we don't utilize the likes of a Brian Lara?
Well, I don't know. I can't answer that question. It could be one of two things. Could be either we don't see the Brian Laras as being people qualified enough to be mentors, or on the other hand, Brian Lara could very well be saying, I can't speak for him, that look, they can't pay me enough, or I can make more money outside, or I don't have the time. I don't know. And I'll be doing the man a great disservice if I were to speculate as to why.
Right.
But Lawrence, you have had
I can tell you.
Yes.
I can add a little piece there. Brian would do it.
He would do it.
If he's asked, he would do it. He would do it.
Yeah, I often wonder why we haven't asked more West Indies players to do that.
I don't know why we don't. Well, I know that we're having some problems with especially former players and administrators. In the earlier years, the board used to run by former players.
Yes.
Former West Indian players used to president. It has changed in modern times. And I believe one of the big things that I think would help a lot is if the board would have moved around like back in the days, where it stays one place for 3 or 4 years, then it automatically moves to the next territory for another 4 years, and it automatically moves around. That is what it was in the old days. I believe we could probably get back to something like that, where we remove the board around. And we don't have the animosity from members of the board, the former players.
To the players.
There's a whole lot of animosity there.
Exactly.
A whole lot.
Exactly.
And it has damaged West Indies cricket, in my opinion, wherein couldn't get a good bridge between the former players and management. It was always problems and wars.
You have people that are running the cricket. You have people that run in the cricket have no knowledge of what cricket is all about. And seriously, that is the problem.
Well, that is what
political situation. This party don't like that former player. And it messes up the whole region's cricket.
Yeah, no cricketers is involved in most of the boards. No cricketer, no former players
are there.
Most of the boards, no.
But perhaps in defense of the administrators, they probably see West Indies cricket as a business. And so they've opted to bring in the likes of these technocrats or business-oriented people. And cricket is a big business.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. I am.
But wait, John.
But there ought to be a mix. So
Thank you. Thank you. If you come in to do business,
Yeah, to the bar.
you stay to business. If I come in to do cricket, let me handle cricket.
I hear you. I hear you. Laura,
we're gonna delve into that same point to close off our broadcast. We're gonna delve into that, right? Let's just take a brief break, and we'll be back. Okay, we're back. John, before the break, you were talking about the mix. Could you elaborate, please? Kind of mix that you feel we need.
Well, if you look at the top 3 or 4 national boards in the world, we're talking BCCI, Australia, England. Those are the top 3 of the top 12 test playing nations, right? And they have parlayed the sport into a business. Look at the BCCI and the IPL. That's a multi-million-dollar business right now. And yes, the beneficiaries have been some of the cricketers who have moved from making next to nothing to $800,000, right? For 9 or 10, 12 matches. So a lot of boards, those are the boards that are being successful. You got the Big Bash League in Australia, you've got the T20s in England, you've got even Pakistan now has a thing. CPL in the Caribbean is also, I don't think they've started making money yet, but they certainly are on the path to making money. So boards are seeing this now as an opportunity to make money. And so they're bringing in the bean counters type of people. But at the same time, what are the boards producing? They're only producing one product, cricket. And you got to know, you have to have people who know how to make stuff the sausage to make cricket. So you have to have cricket people. While somebody's in the front office managing, you have to have somebody in the back room stuffing the sausage, meaning the cricket, sport of cricket. So you do need that mix in order to survive. If boards don't have money, they can't have training programs for under 19 kids. They can't absorb, they can't send people away. Players used to go to and Lawrence knows it because he's played for Derbyshire. Players used to go to England and play in county cricket and come back. And the knowledge they brought back with them helped to raise the standard of the other players around them. We no longer have that. And so you do need that mix of savvy business people, but you need the cricketers, the people who've been there, done it, bought the t-shirt. That is the mix you have to find. And in England, they're doing it. Look who's the president of the BCCI right now, a former India player, right? And so you do have to have that mix. Yeah. The question I have for Lawrence Rowe, who's had a phenomenal, albeit a short, 30 test cricket, 30 test matches career. we all wish to have seen Lawrence Rowe play a lot more cricket.
Certainly.
But Lawrence, I want to throw two numbers at you and tell me what I'm talking about. 227 and 302. What comes to mind when I say 227 and 302?
Wait, 227 was I think you have that one wrong. 227 was Jamaica against New Zealand. I made 227 for Jamaica against New Zealand.
Yes.
And then I made 214 test match in my first test, 214 and 100 not out, and then 302 in Barbados.
Right. Oh, I didn't mention whether it's test or I didn't mention test.
Exactly.
Numbers out there.
You know what he was asking, Yagga.
I just put the two numbers out there because my meeting to that now with my meeting question.
Funny enough, that week, that week to 10 days of cricket back then, I made 100 and I think I had a 204 against Guyana, 147. I don't remember which year it was, but I had a 204 or 147. And I made 227 for Jamaica against New Zealand. 214 in the first, 214 on my first test match. 4 innings there.
Yep.
4 consecutive knocks.
We know that.
4
on your debut to have two centuries, right?
2
but the reason why I
and 100.
Exactly 2 centuries. I think the first person have done it on a test debut.
Right.
The reason I asked
only one today.
To date, I stand corrected, sir. The only one today. Because sometimes you can't keep up with something.
I'm the only one to date.
Yes, sir. Yeah. What would you consider to be your most outstanding inning, in your opinion? The innings you're most proud of.
First this 100.
I'll have to give you 2. I'll have to give you 2. I'll just give you 1. I'll have to give you 2. I made 68 in Sydney in 1975-6. 68 and 302 in Barbados.
Wow.
2 most significant marks, I think, in my test.
Why the 68 is so important to you?
The 68 whites so important to me. It was made at Sydney at the time and 75-6 against the most fearsome bowling attack.
There was Thompson and Lily time.
Okay.
Yes, and I was told by the skipper to occupy the crease. We want somebody to stand up and back. So that 68 took me a while to get. And as I say, the bowling was so fierce. Most of the deliveries was basically passing you by your chest. They were mainly chest height deliveries.
The rising ones, the ones Carlyle used to bowl.
Not me.
And that wicket was full of grass.
Oh,
wow.
Today in the modern day, when I look at Sydney, I see it spinning and turning. It was one of the quickest wickets in the world at the time when I played there in Australia in 75-6. Full of grass.
Wow.
Full of grass.
Green top.
So that is why that's why that 68 coming as one of the best knock to me that I played. The night I was looking back at the highlights on TV, and I was bobbing and weaving and ducking while I was watching the TV, man.
You're reliving every moment.
I was bobbing and weaving watching the replays. This was how tough it was, I was bobbing and weaving watching the TV. And remember, we never had any helmets.
No helmets. No. And no big set of pads and all of that.
There was no helmet. There was no helmet, no arm guard, nothing. You just had a box.
So you had a box was the only protection. A box on your bat was the only protection.
Only protection you had was the box. Only protection you had, basically.
A box and a bat.
Nothing else.
Carlyle, you played first class cricket.
Serious cricket back then.
Absolutely, I can really imagine, and I could understand why this 6 hit would be so important
It was
because
extremely serious back then. Very
yeah,
serious.
that's
Very
serious.
serious stuff.
Carlyle,
Yes,
you
yes.
played
That
cricket
was
in Guyana
that was huh?
Go ahead, Lawrence. Finish up your thought. Go ahead. No,
No, I was saying how tough that series was. So tough. You know, it was extremely tough.
yeah.
Although we were beaten badly,
Mhm.
we give a good account of ourselves. Every first innings, we had done very well. We had scored, I think, 300 in almost every one of the first innings we played against them there
Mhm.
during that series. And then we had some injuries that broke the back of our team. You know, our fast bowlers broke down. We had Keith Boyce who had broke down and Van Burnholder had broke down. And that was the series that Mikey went on, and that was his first tour that he came along. And it was the spirit of that attack. And he and Mikey was good, but we didn't have the backup later on to help us out. So we struggled later on in the tour.
Mhm.
You know.
But you would have
But
come
it was
back
a
to
learning
done well.
experience. We got them a couple years later.
Yes. Every experience you take away something. Carlyle, you played cricket in Guyana, you played cricket in the US. And we talked about the conditions and adapting and stuff. What in your opinion is your best performance, whether in Guyana or in the US?
Do I have a best performance?
Yeah, what is your best performance? I know you had more than one. What is your best performance? Was it in the United States or in Guyana?
It will be in Guyana. It will be in Guyana. My success was really limited, but the game against Trinidad and Berbice, I had a good spell. I picked up about 3 wickets there, and we won that in Berbice. The other games, my second or third game in Barbados, we were under the gun with Hall and Griffith, and one of the better innings I have seen was, can I make an 110? 110, and I watched to see Hall and Griffith watch Everton Weeks as the captain and threw the ball back at him, skipper and done. And I had 110.
Not messing with Rohan.
He beat them into submission. And then at 110, guy just ran to Tony White. The first ball he ran up. And he ran halfway down the wicket and hit his ball high up in the air and got out at 110.
Oh, hey.
All the Barbados bowlers at bay. And the next thing you know, I had a good innings there. I made 48, and we ended up making 260 something. Everybody else, the pace had everybody else. And we ended up winning that match.
But Carlyle, you made 48 as a bowler, not as a batsman.
As a batsman. I was a
I mean, you were a bowler primarily.
Yeah, you can say that.
Exactly. If I were to tag Carlyle Miller with batsman or bowler, I would say bowler. So is a bowler who made 48?
No, a bowler who can bat. I was told by a knowledgeable West Indian batsman who was my captain that I'm supposed to make hundreds.
But every batsman, everybody who holds a bat is supposed to make 100.
No. He says you're good enough to make hundreds.
Okay.
You get 40 and 15, get out. You're good enough to be.
I hear you. Oh boy.
Who was that captain?
Those days were real good.
Oh wait, Lawrence has asked who was the captain?
Clyde Walcott.
Clyde Walcott. Okay.
Yeah. Clyde was a brilliant skipper.
Walcott. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Lawrence.
Batsman, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on board. Thank you for taking the time out to join us, Carlyle. Nice meeting you. Thanks for coming on board. I think this evening was another interesting and informative conversation. Any closing remarks, John?
No, I want to echo your thanks, and I want to thank Yagga for coming on. This is somebody whom I've always had tremendous amount of respect, not only as a player on the field, but as somebody off the field who has always maintained his consistency of thought and his position on social issues vis-a-vis the apartheid system. He hasn't wavered over the years. And I think that is important. It speaks to the character of the man. As a phenomenal batsman and as somebody whom I believe could have made an even greater contribution to West Indies cricket on the field and off the field. Yes, he's beset by some eye problems and stuff that we didn't get into after we while playing for Derbyshire. I think it was the grass there, but that's only my opinion, not an ophthalmologist or but I think it was the grass in Derbyshire that got into his eyes. But also, too, I think had he not been so maligned by the West Indies, by the board and all of the some of the stakeholders, that Lawrence Rowe could have made a greater contribution to West Indies cricket. I still believe that he can, but the West Indies Cricket Board and the West Indies Players Association have to want to make that happen. The man has said it tonight openly. If he's called upon, he'll be in the next flight back down there because he wants to help. We all want to help West Indies cricket. So thanks for coming on, Yagga. I appreciate it. And Carlyle, thank you for coming on and keeping us honest. And Carlyle has made a tremendous, he's very modest, but I know he's made a tremendous contribution to the club I belong to, Atlantis. And as part of the Long Cricket League, Atlantis had about 8 or 9 championships. This is going back into the 70s, early 80s, I believe. And so Carlyle has not only made a contribution to Guyana cricket, we often tease him and tell him he played for British Guyana, not Guyana. But nonetheless, he represented Guyana, and Carlyle has come up here to be an outstanding cricket administrator, as well as to go on to manage the U.S. team. He played against the rest of the world team, Carlyle, right?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did, right. Played for U.S. against the rest of the world and won the match too. And then Carlyle would have gone on to manage the U.S. team to Sharjah was it Sharjah? Yeah, exactly.
They won that, and we're the first U.S. team to ever play in the international arena in the 50-over competition.
Well, there you go. So, and I see both of these gentlemen have made enormous contributions on and off the field, and I want to thank both of them for coming on the show and sharing their lived experiences, as it were, with our viewers on Bits and Pieces, the cricket podcast.
Right. And John, if I may say before we close, in answer to your question that you asked me,
thanks for the kind words. Appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I think Carlyle and I had gone down to Jamaica. And it was 07, right?
Something like that. Yeah,
Carlyle, it was 07.
Yeah, I think so.
And done a US thing in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Yes. 07. Yes. Thanks a lot for having me, and thanks for the kind words.
Oh, you're welcome anytime, man.
You're quite welcome, Yagga.
Carlyle, you were saying something?
Thank you. In answer to your question that you'd asked me earlier on, I thought you would have brought it up as to who's the best opening batsman the West Indies have ever had.
You know, we got so involved in a lot of what was happening.
I know.
Go ahead. Give us yours, and then we can ask
much better information than this. But in my view, again, I say my view, the top two, beyond any doubt, Conrad Hunt and Gordon Greenwich. There's nobody else.
Yeah, you disagree?
Can match up. And here's my reason for saying that. In 44 test matches, 78 innings, Conrad Hunt ended up with an average of 45, which is a very high average in any class of cricket.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that, he had a best figure of 260. 800s, 1350s. The next person was Greenwich. 96 test matches and double the amount of test matches that Hunt played. 163 innings as against Hunt's 78. Highest score 223 and an average of 46.12. Double the amount in innings, double the amount of test matches.
You still maintain an average.
Exactly.
Yep.
In terms of in the latter years, there was no doubt that Greenwich and Haynes were the next best pair going down as the years went by, because Haynes also ended up with the 41. You know, but
Lawrence, you agreeing or disagreeing?
Lawrence, you would agree with the top two? Would you agree with
It's a good two. It's a good two. There's no argument about it. But my top two would be Hunt and Fredericks.
Hunt and Fredericks.
Okay.
And any reason why?
Fredericks is my top two. Meaning, the reason is
why Fredo? Why Fredericks?
In my opinion, Fredo was better at the quicker stuff.
yes, I will
He
give into
produced a
that.
little bit more against the quicker stuff.
The faster bowlers, yeah. I agree with that. But he was the next one
But it's
behind.
good picks, very good picks.
Yeah, because his average was 42.
Yeah, very good picks. There's not been a difference between those guys. But yeah, right.
Yeah.
I have Hunt as well as my top man.
Yep.
Wow. There you have it.
My top
There you have it, John.
Folks, we just letting the listeners know that we will be coming out. We have been asking different people to respond to the question of who they believe are the top 10 greatest West Indian openers, and we will be coming out with the bits and pieces top 10 shortly. Should be a very interesting read.
You just got the best 5. You can figure out the rest.
Wait, Lawrence is saying
I'd
something.
like to edit my list.
You like to hear what? Your list?
Finally,
I'd like to edit my list.
The final list. Well, you will get it.
certainly we'll definitely get it to you.
Final list, I comprise the final list and the
I want to
additions
change
were
somebody on my list.
Alan Ray.
John,
Mine is final already, or I can.
I heard you in competition.
Lawrence already locked in his vote. Now you want to change.
I'm going to tell you the one that I'm going to give you guys the one that I would like to have added to my list. J.K. Holt Jr.
J.K. Holt?
Yeah.
J.K. Holt, okay.
Alan Ray had
Holt
better
Jr.
stats than him.
Yeah, I'd like to add it.
Alan Ray had better stats than him.
So Lawrence,
Yes,
Lawrence got Alan Ray on his list.
I would have loved to add it instead of Carlyle Best. Instead of
Carlyle
Carlyle Best, I would love to add J.K. Holt.
Holt.
Okay.
Yeah, instead of Carlyle, J.K. Holt.
All right,
Okay.
cool.
Cool.
All right, gentlemen. It has been a real fun and informative evening, and
Yes.
we hope that we can have you guys back on, some other time in the future.
Thank
All
you for
right.
having
So
me.
Yagga,
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Carlyle,
Thank you.
I need to come back and spill it all out, man.
Good. Take care.
Nice to see you, Yagga.
All the best. Take care.
All right, cool.
Good night, guys. Good night.
Every day is a